Friends, I do not propose to repeat what I have said. I just will pick up from the simple Malay which I put across and carry on the argument. Very few countries in Asia, or indeed in any of the new nations in the world, have been able to maintain standards, let alone make progress, since they took over from colonial administrations. It's more difficult, you know. The governor just gives orders, the officer just says, do this, do that. But my colleagues and I and the permanent secretaries and others serving under us, we not only have to give orders, but at the end of every 5 years, we must receive a majority mandate to continue to give orders. In other words, the majority must approve and say, yes, this is right, this is necessary. And that we have done well, I don't wish to elaborate. The figures speak for themselves, the percentages, economy, trade, exports, economic development. And the corroboration of that is in the inflow of people into Singapore. You know, on July the 1st, at the request of the Malaysian government, they named July the 1st, we introduced passport control between Malaysia and Singapore. Now, if your lives, the lives you lead, a total of 2,500 people changed their addresses from Malaysia, West Malaysia, to Singapore. 2,500. So, just for the month of July. And just in case, you know, people think that we are racial in our approach, let me explain to you that the majority of them are Chinese. 1,700. But let me also remind everybody that 551 Malays transferred their addresses from Malaysia to Singapore. 551. Then the others were Indians, Pakistanis, Eurasians, and so on. But there were 551 Malays with all nobody will come into Singapore. You know the problem. 15,000 civilian employees of the armed services are going to lose their jobs between now and 1971. Half are our citizens, which means half are not citizens. And the problem very simply is this, that they will take all their redundancy terms, all the benefits, a few $1,000s each, and they will stay here and look for new jobs. But if you and I, who run Singapore and who are the co-owners of Singapore, make a mess of Singapore, they'll all be off. They'll sell their furniture, clothes, their tenancy of the room, everything. Liquidate, collect money, and push off. And we have decided that our money will be convertible, for better or for worse, and I think it is for the better. It's not the wisdom of the Minister of Finance alone, Mr. Lim Kim San. This is a collective cabinet unanimous decision. In India, it is 400 persons per square mile. In Britain, it is 580 persons per square mile. In Japan, it is 680 persons per square mile. And in Singapore, it is 8,110 persons per square mile. But we are not the champions of the world, because Hong Kong has 9,270 per square mile, but not, of course, with our standards of life. Now, let me translate this in terms of life and living. In other words, without social organization, all these 8,100, these are 1965 figures, you know. This comes from the UN Demographic Yearbook of 1965. You ask our statistician this year, he will tell you that it's 8,525. If you have no organized living, 8,525 persons will be running around one over each other's body, trying to grow tapioca, bananas, pineapples. And at the end of it, we'll all begin to get sick and ill and die. And the population will go down, East and West Malaysia, 70 per square mile. That's a sobering thought. And it is just the sheer human determination, the ingenuity, the skill, the drive, plus, of course, the exploitation of our natural geographic position, the infrastructure of communications, commerce, power, water, light, and the shipping arcade that I have mentioned. About 1,200 ships stop and anchor in Singapore, and a few hundreds more just pass us by, because perhaps I've been thinking our bunkering facilities have been too expensive. We lower it a bit, it will go up from 1,002 that stop per month to maybe 2,000 ships per month. More business. To keep the 8,500 persons per square mile at a high level of living. And all this, I think we will do. There will be, I've just met my colleague, the Minister for Health, and I bet you may not like it, but if you don't own a dustbin, you will find by next year that you do own one, and it will be put on your consolidated water and electric account. And it must be that way. But at the end of it all, why have all these countries gone down? They have taken power over from the British, the Dutch, the French, the Belgians, and look at the Congo. Look at Nigeria. 45 million people. They don't enjoy our standard of living. Vast natural resources. About 20 persons per square mile. Why? I've asked myself this often. Why? Because I must know the reason, otherwise I cannot fulfill my simple elementary function as a minister of the Singapore government. And I tell you, there are many reasons. First, the will to be a nation. If a group of human beings do not want to together constitute a nation, nothing can make them other than superior force. That's what the Dutch and the British did with their empires, and the French. Whether you like the other chap or not, I say that you together constitute my colony, and you are all British subjects or French citizens or Dutch protected persons and so on. Now, each one of them have taken over. And a heterogeneous lot have taken over. And that variegated group must agree that they want to be a people. From the rest in the region, preserving our tolerant, permissive, society, our own way of life, and very high standards. But to do that, you must have the will, the capacity to express your desire in an effective way. In other words, you must have leadership. There's no use saying, the Nigerian people believe so and so. Which Nigerian people? East Nigeria, West Nigeria, Midwest Nigeria, North Nigeria? The Congolese Prime Minister or the Congolese President says so and so. Does he represent the 12 million people of the Congo? Nobody has taken a proper census yet. Nobody knows how many tribes there are. Well, assuming that he does represent the 12 million people of the Congo, is he in a position to express and implement their will? In other words, he having decided, he signs a decree number 1551, that all mercenaries of European origin shall be expelled from the Congo. Now you tell me who will implement that decree, that all the non-Congolese soldiers who have been brought there by so many people, the Belgians, Chombe, and the Katangis and so on, must get out of the Congo. Now who implements that? The United Nations is going to send chaps there to serve writs of summons. We serve writs of summons on our Barisan chaps. They say, here you are, Dr. So-and-so, please appear in court on Wednesday. And he doesn't appear in court, well, then we issue a warrant for his arrest. Then he appears. Then he is granted bail. Then the time comes for him to appear for trial. The boy has disappeared because he's committed several other offenses. So we say, right, you forfeit. Where is the father and the mother who stood bail? All right, pay $500. Now, you tell me, assuming that I'm the president of the Ruritanian Republic, I say all foreigners will clear out. Then I say, right, UN Secretary General, please send 10 divisions to clear out all foreigners. You see, at the end of it all, one sunny day, all mortars will be falling down on the palace or the Istana here, just like they do in Saigon. You know how North Indian died? It's an ignominious ending. Mortars, shells, commandos, his own, chasing him. So he ran under the palace walls to escape. Caught, carried in a jeep, shot in a rice field, disposed of. Collapse. Now that's very sad, isn't it? You must have the will and the wherewithal. In other words, a well-oiled, well-maintained machine must be kept to allow the people at large to express their will as represented by certain groups of persons who in turn can exercise their mandate with efficacy. And when they say, yes, those boys will no longer be given bail because they've broken up court benches, disgraced the magistrate, humiliated the dignity of our courts. And the next time they do this, they are no longer given bail, and they stay in the lockup until their trial. Now, all this requires an elaborate machinery, of which each and every one of you tonight is an important wheel within that machine. Without you, my colleagues and I cannot govern, because you, and in turn the people in every one of the villages in the 51 constituencies, every street understands that. Therefore, today we can meet can serve you even a 3-course dinner. Never mind a 6-course dinner. Music to accompany it, and entertainment to follow. But of course, together with it comes a little bit of the preaching. It cannot be helped. This is what it's all about. But I say, let us be grateful. But what we have got. Let us build on it. And never forget our responsibilities. You know, three things constitute the density of population. In any country, given 1 square mile, you first ask yourself, how fertile is it? What can you grow? Like the Mekong Delta, when they have high density. By high, I mean about 70, 100 per square mile. Then you say, well, has it got natural resources? Oil, gold, manganese, like Kuwait or Brunei that I'll be visiting tomorrow at the Sultan's invitation. Well, we haven't got that. All right, if you haven't got that, what have you got? What kind of human beings have you got? Soft ones or hard ones? You grow some kinds of rice in infertile soil, it dies, it won't grow. But there are some kinds of rice, hardy. However infertile the soil, it grows. Human beings are like that. Their culture, their organization, their ductless glands, all the inherited chromosomes and so on. The genes, some are soft, some are hard. And I think we got some very hard ones, hardy types. And last but not least, your technological standards. What are you, a farming community? You grow tapioca for a living? Or like Britain and large parts of Western Europe, you're a highly technological community, industrial community, high standards of education, disciplined skills, training, producing the things which modern civilization requires. And I say, the first, land, fertility, natural resources we haven't got. The second, we have in abundance. The third, we can develop high standards of education, high technological progress. The future, nobody knows. But I'll tell you one simple homily. Whatever happens, if we are not organized to take advantage of it, we are out of the running. Part of my job, I meet very hard-boiled foreign correspondents. They say, of course Singapore's done well. The Vietnam War, so we sell them eggs, chickens. Can you believe it? We actually export eggs and chickens. We didn't do that 20 years ago. Opportunity, ready to get off the mark at every business opportunity that came our way. Today we would not be here. And so I say, never mind the 1970s, the British say they're going to withdraw from their bases. I say, well, all right, we take note of that and make arrangements accordingly. In fact, we made arrangements immediately in August 1965 when we were asked to leave Malaysia. And that's why I say by 1975, fairly secure arrangements can be made. It's not worth, trying to do Singapore in. It's too troublesome, and that must be our objective. And to do that requires a community all the time on the ball, with it, moving ahead of its problems. And so as we congratulate ourselves on a remarkable 2 years since separation, let us resolve that we shall make this a permanent feature of the Southeast Asian Sea. On that note, I wish you all a more happy and, most important, a more secure future. Thank you.